Thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Yannick and I will be speaking on well-being by design. Change people for the better. Please allow me to start with a story. Recently, I came across a story of Maxwell Maltz in his book Psycho-Cybernetics, where he spoke about a father and a son. And the father had to look after his son while his wife went away with the girls for a day out. And so the father, he really wanted to watch the game because it was the finals and he just wanted to see that game. But you know how kids are. And so the kid was like, Dad, can we please play? And so the father was, how do what do I do? And so he walked around the house and he found a magazine. And so he flipped through the magazine and he found a map of the world. So what he did, he got his scissors, cut apart the page into multiple pieces and made a puzzle out of it. And he told his son, if you can solve this puzzle, then I will take you out and we go and play and we'll even get you some ice cream. And so the kid was excited, went to his room, started building solving the puzzle. And then the father was so happy, sat on the couch, relaxed, was like, yes, watching the game. The kid came out of his room and he was like, Dad, I solved the puzzle. And the father was just baffled. And he was like, all right, but how did you solve the puzzle so quickly? And the kid said, well, Dad, on the back of the puzzle, on the back of the map, there was a man. And I realized that once I got the man right, the world would come together. And when I heard that story, I was like, wow, that's such a powerful analogy, because isn't that true that if we get the man right, if we get the woman right, if we get the person right, the world comes together. And whatever that is happening this year, we see that the world becomes more divided. And, the media plays a role in that. But if we get the man and the person right, we see that we can bring that world back together. And fortunately, that is something that we also see in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's no wonder that that is on number 3 of their goals, to improve the health and well-being of the people. And of course, we already know what to do. We already know what works. We know that we should have positive and meaningful relationships. We know that we should do physical exercises. We know we should engage in hobbies and crafts and skills and act out of kindness and give to people rather than take. We know we should embrace healthy sleep habits, experience nature, doing deep breathing exercises, relaxing, mindfulness, meditation, all these things. And fortunately, I see lots of initiatives happening from government, from universities, from the industry. Everybody is trying to help improve well-being. So that's a really good thing. And currently, the world is facing this global health crisis that we have never seen before. And it is spreading human suffering and destabilizing the global economy. And it is upending the lives of billions of people around the globe. And so especially with COVID, it is important that we do these things. So it is great that I see so many initiatives. But what I also notice, or our team has observed, is that a lot of the efforts are focused on creating the program and the solution and something that helps solve the problems. And we get excited, we launch the program, we build the website, we do the marketing, we do all the advertising, and then it is time to open or launch the program. And what happens? We get disappointed by the number of people that show up. We have not enough people that join us. We have low program uptake. We have low retention rates and limited behavior change. And what we have observed in our research is that we see that this may due to a failure of understanding people's needs. And what that entails is that generally, what we do is when we design a program or we design a solution to solve a particular problem, we see that we use top-down design approaches. And these top-down design approaches may ignore specific needs of the people. So what that looks like is we gather into a boardroom with highly experienced experts and professionals, and we come together to solve this problem, and we come up with solutions that we think are right. And without much consultation with the people that are actually should be part of the program or that we are seeking to engage with. And this happens a lot. And that is due to multiple reasons. So on the other hand, we have options that are called bottom-up design approaches, where everyone has something of value to share at every stage of the process. And what that looks like is gathering people in a room and asking them questions about their needs, about their preferences. And one of these design approaches is participatory design, where the focus is on better understanding and involving people to create more tailored and user-friendly products and services. So today I will walk you through this process to hopefully help you to improve the user-friendliness and the effectiveness of any of the programs and solutions that you may be building or designing to improve people's well-being. And so the participatory design process consists of 4 steps, where we have first collecting insights. We use those insights to then develop a prototype, which we will then test in step 3, the implementation phase, and to learn in step 4 whether our initiatives and endeavors have been effective, where we evaluate all that we have designed. So I will guide you through all the steps and give some examples and see how we can use that to our advantage. Step number 1, collecting insights. So this is the step where you look at what is already out there. Whatever it is that you're trying to solve, whatever practices have been used previously and have worked and have not worked, you try to identify all these things and collect them. So best practices, user insights, what is out there, what works, when and where. Then you invite the people that you are seeking to engage with into a room and get them to participate in these activities, to understand how do these people experience these activities. Will this fit? Because some of the activities, in whatever space that would be, may work in a certain country, in a certain setting, for a certain behavior, but they may not always translate into another situation or a behavior. And so it is very important that you test these things with the people you are seeking to serve. Then you get feedback on their experiences. And well, as I said, that is really important to understand if it is something that could potentially work in your solution. I want to give you an example of one of the programs that we are developing. So I am a PhD candidate at social marketing at Griffith in Queensland, Australia. And we are developing a online well-being and lifestyle program called Elevate Self-Growth. And this is for young adults. And the aim is to reduce stress and to increase resilience, increase sense of purpose, positive relations, and mindfulness and happiness. And what we have done in this research is we have looked at everything that is out there that improves people's well-being, or these specific areas of well-being on the bottom of this screen. And we have gathered these, and we wanted to explore how that works for young adults. How do they respond to these activities? So what we did was we invited them into a room, and we got them together, and we got them to experience some of these activities. So we started off with some icebreaker activities to loosen up them a little, and then we got them to engage in some physical exercises. So on the screen here, you see some yoga exercises, but we did some breathing exercises. We did some squats. We even did some push-ups, and you will see some planking here. So we pushed them a little, right? So we got them to engage in the experiences, and then we formed groups and asked them to give feedback on the experiences they have just engaged in, and come up with ideas and solutions for how they would improve their well-being, including even advertising campaigns and how they wanted to be marketed to and how they wanted to be spoken to. One of the things that we have used was the feedback capture grid, which is a really useful tool designed by Interaction Design. You see a link on the bottom of the screen. And this form is really useful to extract people's positive points. So on the left top, we see the likes. Then we have on the right top the criticism, what people don't like. And on the bottom left, if they have any questions related to your service or your activities, and if they have any ideas on how to better build these services to their specific needs. So what that looks like is a sheet like this. This is one of the many sheets that we have collected, and you can imagine that if you have 50, 100, 200, 300 people or more in such a design session, you get very rich data, and you know exactly what works and what doesn't work. At some point, you'll see those patterns and you'll know, hey, this is something that is really useful. So this is, in a nutshell, some of the steps you can take in this first phase of the participatory design process. Step 1, collecting insights. Then we transition to step 2, which is the prototype development. So in this step, you start forming a program or a solution based on these insights. And this is also part of this participatory process where people are still involved in this process. And to give you an example of what we did in our program is we have people in these sessions. We ask them the simple question: if you were to design a well-being program for yourself, what would it look like? And we see very detailed designs here that people have come up with. And again, if you put these things together, you get a really good insight into what is popular, what doesn't work, and you know, what choices should we make to include certain activities in our program. One thing that is really important in this second phase, the prototyping, is theory, because theory is critical to the effectiveness of behavior change programs. And the reason for that is that theory explain behavior and phenomena. So this can lead to cost-effective benefits and useful outcomes, and also reduces the risk of failure. And so second, the theories can be used to explain or predict behavior. So if you understand what factors lead to behavior or behavior change, the activities can then be concentrated on the constructs that are critical to the behavior change. So if you're creating a solution or a program, this is focused on the what of the program, what should be in it. Then third, we see if you collect data within this theoretical framework, it facilitates the build-up, the collection of evidence of effectiveness, which you can then use to guide future decision-making. Fourth, we see that theory can assist in identifying effective behavior change techniques for changing these theoretical constructs that you're using, and that may guide how behavior may be changed. So what are the specific tools that you'll be using to change behavior? And last, if you build a theory-based program, it can help you to understand why programs are effective or ineffective. And that is really essential, because then you understand what components of the program you can drop or you can continue to use and double down on in your future design even. So the application of theory is widely recommended by social marketers, behavior change professionals, and you know, it is something that everybody should be using according to the professionals. But what we notice in our research is that theory is actually rarely used in programs. And when we see its application in programs, there is a lack of understanding how theory has been applied. So for that reason, I want to guide you through one example that has been used often in marketing or designing and marketing well-being programs, and that is the theory social cognitive theory. Perhaps you've heard of this one, and what I want to do is I want to guide you through some examples to get you familiar with this theory, and perhaps you can apply this to some of your programs to improve the outcomes. So when we look at this, let me just switch to the laser pointer if I can. So we see that In the middle, we have human behavior. And so human behavior is influenced by multiple factors. And according to this model, we see that there's 3 factors in influencing behavior. So on the top, we have the cognitive factors. So this is all related to information and knowledge. So if someone is aware of a behavior, if they know the benefits of the behavior, then it is more likely that they'll actually be able to engage in that behavior. So it's a bit of a precondition for behavior. Then we have the behavioral factors. So someone may be able of the benefit, may be aware of the benefits, but they may not actually possess the skill or the efficacy to engage in that behavior. So the more skilled you are, the more likely it is that you will engage in certain behavior. And then finally, the third factor are environmental factors. To what extent does your environment allow you to perform a certain behavior? And so what we see with the cognitive factors is we see that in practice, a lot is focused on education and awareness campaigns, where we inform people about the behavior, the benefits of doing performing a certain type of behavior. And if we look at COVID, we see, how to properly wash your hands and how to follow proper sanitation practices. And this is all focused on increasing the knowledge of that behavior. And the behavioral factors, we see its application are skill development initiatives, for example, where the focus is on increasing the skill and the efficacy to perform that behavior. And here, it already becomes a bit more difficult. So what we see in practice, the majority of the programs are focused on the cognitive factors, where the majority of the programs are awareness campaigns, where we tell people what to do or what is best for them. And then comes the skill development initiatives, and these are more cost intensive and time intensive to develop, and so we see less of that. And then finally, the environmental factors, that is environmental design. So all the things that we do to make it more conducive for people to perform a certain type of behavior. And policy, for example, is included in this factor. And what we see in our research is that, yes, the cognitive factors, a lot of people organize programs that address these factors, and then the behavioral factors a little less so. But environmental factors, we see that is greatly underutilized in the practice of active behavior change, and there's lots of gains to be made there, and I want to zoom in on that a little in this presentation today. So to come back to our example, Elevate Self-Growth, this is a well-being program. And the goal of the well-being program is to help people to live a healthier and happier life. And this is a snapshot of some of the things that we want people to do, is to engage in quality analog leisure time. And so we see that we spend a lot of time online, and we want to take people away from their devices, bring them into the physical world, into nature, face-to-face engagements, engaging in hobbies, doing stuff with their hands, hobbies, crafts, developing skills, etc. We want people to engage in physical activity, to move in moderate to vigorous physical activity on a regular basis. Maintain healthy sleep habits. We want people to meditate and engage in mindfulness sessions and that sort of stuff. Then we have social service. So we want people to engage in either voluntary work or acts of kindness, little simple things that you can do for each other, especially during these times. So to achieve these objectives, you can follow the social cognitive theory, the 3 constructs. And the first construct was the cognitive factors. So in our example, in our program, we use gain framing. So we want to make people aware of the benefits of performing that behavior. We use persuasive communication to make them take a step towards that behavior, and use modeling, which is the use of models that people relate with, peers who are already engaging in that behavior, and explain, and we just portray how that behavior is already applied by people in their peer groups. And what that builds on the principle of monkey see, monkey do. When they see someone else doing something, then you're more likely to do that also. So these are all the cognitive factors focused on making people aware that this is what you should be doing or could be doing, and to improve your well-being. Okay, then we have the second construct is the behavioral factors. And in our program, we use guided practice, where we take people through a meditation session, or take them through a breathing exercise. Goal setting, where we get people to set their goals. Implementation intentions, to make an intention, write down what they're going to do to make it more likely they're actually going to do it. Graded tasks, starting small, further increasing when they're ready. And then cue altering, stimulus control, building habits by making little changes in their daily practices. And then finally, and this is the more important one that I want to focus on, is environmental factors. So again, in our program, we divide these into interpersonal environment and organizational environment. So for the interpersonal environment, that is everything related to the control that I have that are related to me as a person. And so partners and roommates to support participants in engaging in these behaviors that we mentioned, or peers to support and join participants in some of these activities. And then the organizational environment. And I think here, this is where you come in as a government employee, and you will see that there's some influence to be made here. If we look at the organizational environment, what we suggested, and this is just a tiny amount of the things that we can do, but employers, universities, and councils to offer spaces for physical exercise, meditation, experiencing nature, crafting, etc. Well-being subsidy for people to spend on listed services, and implementing 4-day work weeks or 5-hour work days. And in this case, it is so that there's already lots of initiatives here, but I want to use another story to make a point on this. And so I recently read the book Upstream by Dan Heath, and the book opens with a parable, which is commonly attributed to Irving Zola, and it goes as follows. So you and a friend are having a picnic by the side of the river, and suddenly you hear a shout from the direction of the water, and a child is drowning. So without thinking, you both dive in, grab the child, and swim to the shore. But before you can recover, you hear another child cry for help. So you and your friend jump back into the river to rescue her as well. And then another struggling child drifts into sight, and another, and the two of you can barely keep up. And then all of a sudden, your friend walks out of the water and looks like he's leaving you alone. And you're like, where are you going? And your friend answers, I'm going upstream to tackle the guy who's throwing all these kids in the water. And so that's an interesting way of looking at problems. We can tell people not to jump in the water if they cannot swim. We can train lifeguards to save the people who are in trouble. But if we never tackle the guy who's throwing all these people in the water, we don't solve the problem. So rather than me telling you what to do, I encourage you to consider, what can you do to change environments? What influences do you have? What partnerships can you leverage from? What new partnerships can you establish to make it easier, more fun, and satisfying for people to perform well-being behavior? And most of us know that we should be eating healthily. But why do people still consume more fast food than is good for their health? Why don't they just eat healthy? It's because fast food is often cheaper, faster, and tastier. Or at least marketing makes it seem like it is, because often it, may be tasty, but after 30 minutes we don't feel so good. So if this stuff is more costly, or let's say if it's more costly to buy fruit and vegetables in the supermarket compared to microwave meals and snacks and treats, so we're not making it easy for people. So how can you make it easy for people. And I know that this involves the good old discussion that people should have their own choice. And yes, people should have their own choice. But if their choices are manipulated by environments to choose unhealthy options, just because there's some commercial incentive behind it and it benefits the vendors and not the people buying it, then I think the level of fairness is a bit skewed, right? There's no balance. And so what we see is we see multiple studies that have already shown that, for example, food warning labels help people to make better food choices. So why aren't we still using them? I know that the food industry is against it because it diminishes their profits and they want to, of course, still make money. But why do we even accept profit over people? And I know it is not that easy. We cannot just, slap the labels on. And I know it's not easy, but we must make changes where we can. And the environment, direct or indirect, is a good place to make those wins. And so every little change can add to a remarkable result in the long term. I am from the Netherlands originally, and I live in Australia now. So if I would travel from Australia to the Netherlands, to Amsterdam, then this is how I would travel. Not at the moment, but hopefully in the future I can go back one day. If the plane is 1% off course, it takes me to Lille, which is somewhere in France. And so the distance from Amsterdam to Lille is monumental. So you can see by just changing that course 1%, you create this amazing difference. And so I want to just encourage you to think about, what is your 1%? Is there something that you can do to make that change remarkable in the long term? So coming back to that participatory design process, we are ready for step 3, the implementation phase. And this is where we test the water. So how will your program be received by the people? And this is a very important phase of learning. This is not necessarily where we hit the market and that's going to be it. This can be a test. And in fact, that should be a test. And so I have a few tips that you may find useful. The first one is to pilot test the program, is to get a proof of concept ready, put it in front of people. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but just get people to experience what you've created before you actually launch the entire program, to get feedback on what can be improved, what works well, and can you double down on that? And then to actively promote the program. And instead of just sending an email or putting it on a website somewhere and doing one Facebook post or whatever, you should be actively promoting that program day in, day out. And what that requires is someone who champions this program. So if that is you, then take full ownership of that. If that is someone else, then encourage these people, provide them with the resources to actively promote this program. To every day, be on the platforms, be on the Facebook pages, be in the groups, be active on Instagram or on YouTube, punching out videos, doing actively promoting, but not doing everything just ad hoc without thinking, but be very intentional about where your audience is and try to be there with the content to engage them and get them to participate in your solution, whatever that may be, and seek partnerships. Find out who is already engaging people in this space that you're trying to seek your behavior change. So who are established parties that already have a following, and how can you collaborate with them? Because we should be standing on the shoulders of giants. And if there is already existing networks and people already have the warm relationships, how can we build on that, and how can you seek these partnerships? Then the last phase of this participatory design process is step 4, evaluation. And evaluation is where you consider or you review the progress that you have made and test the effectiveness of everything that you have designed. So there's a couple of tips in this phase. First of all, you should design for evaluation. And what that means is whatever you design in your program, you got to think of what is the outcome and how am I going to test that outcome. So you want to identify performance metrics. So these could be have people's knowledge has people's knowledge increased? Have their skills been improved? Have we changed the environment to make it more conducive to change that behavior? And this is in line with social cognitive theory, but there's many other theories that have different constructs that have different performance metrics. So choose whatever is necessary for you to measure whether the initiatives that you have done actually deliver results. And then you look at the behavioral objectives. So if you want people to increase physical activity, then we measure the extent to which they have done that physical exercise. And then you measure these metrics and these objectives before your program or solution and after or during the program. And that helps you to immediately see what works and what doesn't. And then you can expand on what works and you can eliminate or improve what doesn't. So that is in a nutshell the tips in this phase. And I know that there's many presentations. One by my colleague, Julia Cairns, who speaks in more detail about evaluation. I encourage that you check that presentation out. So I think you have seen this image before, or at least some that makes the same point. We often come up with a solution to a program, and we think, or a solution to a problem, and we think, hey, this may be the way to do it, and we come together in our room and we think, let's come and design this this program, and we make this roundabout here, and that's how people are going to use it. But in reality, the people, they don't walk around the curb, they just go straight through, and they'll find their own path. And that is something that is really important that I want to give to you, is that how can you work with what people already do? And so here we see on the top, we see the mud trails formed by students on a campus by Ohio State University. And on the bottom, we see that they have actually paved those paths on their campus. So that is just something that you should take into consideration. How can you build on what your people need and want and are interested in and are already doing? And how can you create something that fits in their lifestyle rather than making people do the impossible? So some takeaways on this, on all this, is that you should be designing with people in mind, and participatory design is a very effective process to make user-friendly services and make them effective as well. Then second, good programs are underpinned by theory. So that could be any established theory, and that helps you to remember that you should be standing on the shoulders of giants, to not reinvent the wheel, to take what works and apply it to new situations, and make sure that you adapt it to your specific, unique factors. And finally, get 1% better every day. And that is just such a tiny thing that you can do, but in the long term, it gives so much results, remarkable results, and so much change. That is it for me. My name is Yannick, and I thank you very much for your patience. If you've come all the way to the end of the presentation, I highly appreciate it. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Yannick van Heerden, or my email address, y.vanheerden@griffith.edu.au. If there is any feedback you have for me, please let me know. And if you want to collaborate on any of the work that we are doing as a center, or the work that we are doing with Elevate Self-Growth, we are always interested in partnering with government parties to make sure that we can maximize our impact and change the environments. And that is ultimately what we're seeking to do. So please contact me, and I want to thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.